Can you believe the Seahawks are not in the playoffs? I kind of can.
Yeah, I can.
I really can. And I think that from this, Bump, you were looking at the Seahawks and you thought, look, they learned a really simple lesson from all of this. What was the lesson?
The lesson is don't depend on anybody but yourselves.
Don't do it.
All right? You get the job done so you can sit at home and say, look, week 18 is going to be for the division, the finale, let's go get it. But you make mistakes earlier on in the season. You lose a game or two that you felt like you should have won. And the Rams get better. They get stronger like they do every single year, it seems like. And now you are sitting at home hoping the Atlanta Falcons pull off a win. Hoping the Jets beat the Bills. Yeah, right. Hoping the Dolphins beat the Browns. I'm sitting here watching games. And just intently. Like, I watch football all the time. Yeah. But it's different this time. I'm like, come on, Miami. Yeah. Come on, Huntley. Get it done, baby.
I'm sitting here, Raheem, stop wasting your timeouts. Why do you always do this? As though I've been watching every Falcons game.
I felt like I wore 5 jerseys on Saturday and Sunday.
Correct.
And I kept ripping them off for the next game, But that's the lesson that they learned. But listen, this is disappointing. But this season was exactly the way I thought it was going to be. 9-10 wins, maybe get the playoffs. To show that you're making some progress in some areas, and I think we saw that. There's a foundation that's laid. Mm-hmm. Mike Macdonald has a good thing going on, I believe. Changes will be made, I believe, with the roster and with the staff. That's just what happens during an offseason. But I'm okay with where they're headed.
Yep.
But the journey to get there was a bit frustrating. But in the end, it's exactly what I thought it was going to be.
That, I think, is the biggest lesson. So at the risk of sounding like an echo chamber, I'll be like, yeah, totally. Cosign, 1,000%. Stop leaving everything up to other teams. Stop leaving everything up. Like, you took this out of your own hands by losing to maybe the worst team in football this year, the New York Football Giants.
Yeah.
Who hurt themselves by getting a win. You know how mad I'd be as a Giants fan? Your odds, I was listening to this on the Ringer NFL show, their odds of the number 1 pick jumped from almost like 90-something% to 5%.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. I'd be like, Drew, stop it. Stop it right now. Everyone stop scoring. Stop winning. Don't do this.
Dayball's like, I'm going to get fired anyway.
Yeah.
So we going out swinging them things.
Colts are looking like idiots. We're not talking about that game yet. What we're going to do instead is stick with the Seahawks. I'd say a second lesson learned. And, Bump, this is more from me looking at what the Seahawks did well this year and then looking at the playoff landscape. Fixing the defense simply isn't enough. Mike Macdonald was brought here to fix the defense, and he did. And later on in the show, when we talk about like whether or not the season was a success, it's hard for me not to say yes. You may improve on your win total, and in most cases, particularly in this division, a 10-7 record would have gotten you to the playoffs. You don't look like a Super Bowl team, but that would have been good enough. It's not this year, and that's of your own doing. But again, you brought a defensive coordinator here to do 2 things. 1, fix the defense. 2, compete with these really innovative play callers in your division. TBD on that one. We're still waiting to see. Maybe he splits a series with both Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. But he certainly fixed the defense. But, Bump, now that we know what the playoff landscape is mostly going to look like, I look at the top teams in points per game. Lions, Bills, Ravens, Bucks, Commanders, Bengals, who may be a playoff team, Eagles, Packers, Vikings, Broncos, Chiefs. Offense needs to be better for the Seahawks, point blank, period. I know we have this thing of defense wins championships, but I'm sorry, you cannot be just a mediocre offense and still get into the playoffs and still win championships now.
No, the offense needs to be a bit more. And there are some things that I feel hinder the offense. You got to have the personnel. You're not just going to walk out there with 11 random guys and the offense is just going to work. But there are some things that you can do to help the offense. Mm-hmm. And I'm in love. I'm in love with the purple team. I love watching the purple team play.
The Huskies?
I'm talking about, of course not. I'm talking about the Vikings. I love what they're doing. I watch more film on the Vikings. Well, obviously I watch the Seahawks, right? But after the Seahawks, it's the Vikings. I love watching their film. I love the deception of the run game. I love the play action. I love the route combinations. I love just the discipline. Granted, their offensive line is legit. They got a good offensive line. And I've also seen Sam Darnold stand in the pocket, get blitzed, and still have 3.5 seconds to throw the football because the running back is picking up the backer, and the offensive line is great. The tight ends are blocking. It's just beautiful to watch. And you know I've had a man crush on Sam Darnold all year, so now I'm watching him go get it, and I'm happy for him. And I'm looking at the Viking situation, and I'm thinking, what are you going to do with Sam Darnold? I think we'll get to that later. But It's just the way the plays are called, the way they're designed. They're not even good at running the ball. They're not even like top 5 in the league when it comes to running the football, but they do it enough to where you have to respect it. You have to respect it. When they're in shotgun, 90% of the time they are throwing the football. But for some reason, those backers still respect the run. Every now and then they're going to hand the football off. It's just the mind games that they play with you. It's beautiful. I tweeted last night. I said something along the lines that the Vikings play action game is like when I play fetch with my dog and I pretend to throw the football. Like you fake like you throw it and the dog turns like, where's it? Where is it? Where is it? Those are the linebackers when you play against the Vikings. They believe every time that you are handing the football off, and it's because they're disciplined with it, they're stubborn with it, and they make all their stuff look the same. I love watching the Vikings offense.
We're going to get more into that at 10:30 when you start talking about some of the lessons that the Seahawks offense can learn from the Vikings this year. And we'll talk about the quarterback conversation at 10:45. I want to jump back to Sunday night's game. It was obviously not the Seahawks playing, but it did eliminate the Seahawks by virtue of a Commanders win. The 253. This is not the only person I said saying this kind of take, so I want to throw it your way. Watching Dan Quinn last night makes me think John Schneider picked the wrong head coach. What do you think about that take?
No, I'm fine. I think Dan Quinn is in a great situation. He also had a high pick and got himself a quarterback that's going to be there for a long time. No, I'm fine with that. I think that was the perfect situation for Dan Quinn. I couldn't imagine Mike Macdonald, a rookie head coach, going into that situation. Yeah, he might have had some success, but you don't put yourself in that position. I think for a young guy, this is the perfect place for him because you're coming to an organization that has direction, that has a foundation, that has a culture that you don't just have to tear apart and start all over. No, I think this was a good situation. The Commanders needed a veteran coach, somebody who's been in several locker rooms, who's spoken and had relationships with several GMs and knows what things are supposed to look like. I'm completely fine. Big ups Dan Quinn. I'm happy for Dan Quinn. I'm happy for the Commanders fans because that was a show over there for the past 4 or 5 years. No, I'm happy Mike Macdonald's here. Can't wait to see what he does.
Well, and don't overlook the force multiplier that a quarterback can be, particularly a quarterback that's going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year. Do not overlook the vast impact that Jaden Daniels can have. It's not just the coaching staff, the great players. They had a great free agency, but it's also the difference in Jaden Daniels really swinging momentum, the end of games, fourth quarter, game-winning drives. I mean, they've also gotten lucky. I agree with you. Someone said Hawks won their Super Bowl with a top defense and average offense. Get back to that. I just want to stress quickly that I think we tend to alter the narrative of the 2013 Seahawks by forgetting how good the offense could be. By no means exaggerating the defense. It was one of the best, maybe the best defense I've ever seen in person, ever in my entire life. That was a number 4 overall rushing offense. That was, since then, the best offensive line the Seahawks have had. They also spent quite a bit of money on it. So if we're talking about we'll build in the model of what you had, I don't think any team, much less the Seahawks, are going to be able to replicate the Legion of Boom. But moreover, I don't know that an average offense typically gets it done now, and the Seahawks were not an average offense. They were average in total yards, but they were a very good run team. Marshawn Lynch was balling. Yeah,
they were average overall, but they had something that they did at a high level that's run the football.
Yes.
You can say the same thing about this offense. They throw the football well, but we also know that running the ball deep into December, January, if you get there in February, it's typically what's going to win you some ball games when it's cold and it gets physical and the weak are eliminated. You can typically throw the football against weaker defenses. Running the football is how you set the tone. And when you have a team that is elite, the best defense that we've seen over the past 10, 15 years in that Seahawks defense, they control the game on that side physically. You control it by running the football, and then you still take your shots. Let's not forget that Russell was still tossing it up and taking the shots out there. So I get where that listener is going. He's saying, look, let's be elite on defense, and then we can be okay on offense.
Yes.
I think you can be okay on offense if you have a solid running game. Throwing the football is fun to watch, and you'll light up the scoreboard at times, but it's the least consistent part of football. A lot of things have to go right to consistently push the football down the field the way the Denver Broncos did when Peyton Manning was going nuts.
Well, and I think, if we're talking about simple lessons to take, like simple lessons the Seahawks learned, you mentioned don't leave it up to other teams. I said fixing the defense isn't enough. Both of us in talking about offense and talking about what we'd like to see this team see is simple lesson learned. You can know what team you want to be, but you actually got to play like it. I think that at the beginning of the year, Mike Macdonald wanted to be a really physical team. He wanted to be able to run the ball, but kind of be able to beat you in multiple ways. And he wanted to be a great defense. By season's end, he's improved the defense quite a bit, but they are by no means a physical offense that can beat you in multiple ways.
No, I also think you got to have the guys to do that too.
Exactly.
You can have the idea, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to be when I grow up, Stacy, a 6'4" receiver that runs a 4.3. You couldn't tell me anything different when I was 9.
I want to be an actress, model, singer.
Then I get to 18,
but it didn't work.
19, and that ain't going to happen. So now what do I have to do? I have to change my mindset and change my game to who I am. I think partly that's what happens with the offense, too. People are going after Grubb. Yeah, okay, you can go after him. I get it. But I also look at what he has, and I think they cannot be a physical team. To be a physical team, to watch the Vikings, the Lions, the 49ers, and all that stuff, you need some dogs on that offensive line. You have some dogs that are in the making, I believe. I think Olu's going to be okay. Who knows what Laumea is going to look like. Maybe you got to replace some other pieces. You got to have dogs at the tight end spot. The tight end, it wasn't a great year for the tight ends when it comes to blocking. Fan had his moments late in the season when it comes to receiving the football. So did A.J. Farrell made a play or two, but they weren't like just strong, stout blocking tight ends. And then you need runners to get downhill. What's crazy about that, they might have found that in Zach Charbonnet.
Isn't that wild?
It's nuts to me because we all remember what Ken Walker is capable of doing. And I still think he is capable of doing it. And I think those two together can still do some great things. But it's a combination of things. You can have an idea of what you want to be as a football team. But if you don't have the pieces to run that, to be that, you just can't.